Your outline will not define your whole story. That's what I learned after speaking to my first ever client 5 years later. Crazy story. Hold on, let me tell you about this. So I have a client, right? He was like my first client ever back in 2020. And we just worked together for the first time again after like 5 years. So here's the story, right? Back in 2020, we worked on the outline. I gave my feedback, my thoughts, my suggestions, things like that. Went our separate ways. I was like, all right, good luck with your draft and let's see what happens. So he finally contacted me 5 years later to show me like everything, the final draft, the final product, basically. Everything's done at this point. And when I looked through the final draft, because he wanted to see my feedback and how I felt about the final draft, and of course, I keep receipts. So I still had documents of the very first outline and his first draft, things like that. So looking back and comparing the outline and the final draft, I'll say he probably changed about 60% of the story from the outline to the final draft. Like either is like between 40 to 60%, like somewhere between there. Like that much has changed in the story since the original idea began 5 years ago. And that's really what brought me to the main point why I stated earlier. Your outline will not define your story. Like a lot of us, which including myself, we kind of see outline as like a step by step blueprint instead of it being just a guide. An outline is as something you have to follow in order, or you like take it as like step one, step two, step three, and you have to follow it or in order to write your draft or write your story. Maybe for your first draft, but it doesn't mean it's finalized. And that's something we have to like break that belief out of our minds when it comes to writing out our story in our drafting process as well. Like the outline is not the Bible, That's one thing we need to learn. And one thing he taught and he told me was as he was writing out his draft, like he gained a better understanding of his characters, of the scenes, because he's writing out the actual details of the dialogue, getting a better understanding of how the characters sound like, their personality, their voice, and being able to show the difference between each character throughout the scenes of the story. That's what basically led to the changes that happened from the outline to the final draft is those details, those scenes, because of course you have like a vague idea of how the story is gonna flow with the outline, but like once you get into the details, that's when you're gonna truly get an understanding or get a feel for the characters and the plot you're trying to follow based on the outline, and that's what's gonna lead to changes. So I'm actually gonna play this clip here because I actually have a clip of us talking and me asking him the question of how much change he has made since the outline. Like I think I still have like all your outlines, all your previous drafts from
Oh,
years ago. I kind of like looked through some of them to see if there was a lot of changes.
yeah, I changed a lot of the story and like I don't I don't know. I guess that's something writers do.
Yeah, it
Like if
is.
when you work on the story for such a long time, eventually you change it because you just develop better ideas.
Right. If you
But
have you noticed that your ideas change more as you were writing the draft than when you were outlining?
oh, definitely, definitely.
That's something I've been trying to preach more to people like, don't worry about the outline as much because it's most likely gonna change anyways when you're drafting.
That that's definitely true. Yeah, because it's just I guess it's kind of hard to stick with like the outline as your blueprint because you're just I guess it's just tempting naturally to just put something in the story that makes it better.
Right, right, right. And
Yeah.
I think as you like especially as you're writing out the scenes, you have more details. You're able to like see more of the details in the story. So that's when your brain could actually think of better scenarios or better scenes for particular chapters just because you're actually writing out the details and like kind of having like the vague plot idea for
Yeah,
for what's
yeah,
gonna happen.
definitely. Yeah,
Of course, it's gonna be a short clip just because I don't want to reveal anything from his story. I just wanted him to have like a rough, like tell me like a rough idea of his experience as he was writing out the draft from his outline and things like that. So yeah, it was just a cool and great experience to have. Seeing the process of the original outline, like the rough idea into its final product, like the final draft, and just seeing what stayed the same, what was kept, and what changed. The main thing that stayed the same was the premise. Like the premise of the story remained the same completely, and that's one thing I will say about the outline. When you're trying to develop your premise, that's usually like the core fundamental piece of your story that's normally don't change at all throughout your whole process of writing out your story. Usually, like normally, I don't know, maybe some of us have before, but I don't think I've ever run into that case at all. There might have been a case that happened, but normally with the premise that usually stays the same for the most part. So but everything surrounding the premise, that's where like anything could go, like anything could change during the drafting process. Like heck, even his main character's name change, so which is funny. So yeah, that experience and talking to him after 5 years really drive home the point that your outline, like I said in the beginning, your outline does not define your story. So don't let it. Start before you're ready. Start the drafting process as fast as possible. Outline as much as needed, of course, in order to make your drafting process as easy as possible. But after that, don't rely on it so much. Once you finish drafting out your first draft, let your first draft be the guide for your second draft. And then once you're done with your second draft, let your second draft be the guide for your third draft, and of course continuing on until you reach your final draft. I think that's how I like to see it. Is like your outline is your guide to your first draft, and then it goes from that order. Your first draft becomes the order of whatever draft comes next. Boom, 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 boom until it's done. Think of it that way. So yeah, hopefully this video helps, especially if you're stuck in the outlining phase and you're not too sure if you're ready to start drafting as yet. Sometimes you just have to start before you're ready, but yeah, if you still feel like you're unsure, you're stuck, or you need ideas in order to move on to your drafting process, or you feel like you need feedback in order to fully feel confident in moving on to your drafting process, you could definitely check out the video. Is either going to be here or there. It's going to be explaining my consultation calls where I'm going to be discussing about your outline. Of course, I'm going to read over it fully, and then I'm going to give you feedback, my suggestions, what we could do about it, and then we're going to hop on a call, of course, and then we're going to see what we could do to boost your confidence as well as complete the outline as much as possible so you feel ready to start your first draft. So yeah, you could check out that video here or there. It's going to be somewhere. And then also, if you feel ready to book a call, you can also just click the link down below, and then you can schedule the call. And then, but make sure to give me a few days to like read your outline so I could get my ideas running as well. So yeah, check that out. And lastly, if you have an idea that you like and enjoy, make sure you keep it in your story. If you have an idea that you like from the outlining phase and you really, really, truly want to keep in your story, keep it. Like, you don't have to change ideas from outline to final draft if you truly love the idea for your story. So, yeah. Appreciate you watching the video and see you next time. Thank you.